one of the things that really drew me into freestyle was this feeling that it was kind of like dancing. There was something very smooth about it. It was this kind of smooth, flowy dancing feeling that I got from some of the skaters within the niche. And of course, there's different kinds of flow. There's definitely flow in other aspects of skateboarding as well, but I do think that freestyle in particular has a very unique flow and smoothness to it that I don't really get from other niches inside of skateboarding. But that's just my opinion. And I also think that different skaters have different kinds of smoothnesses. They have different kinds of flows. Some are very fast and aggressive. Some are much more light and I think light is the word. I'm thinking dainty, but dainty's not it. Like, there's just a lot lighter footed. There's a lot more of a watery flow to it. It's not smoother. It's just a different nuance or a different take on that smoothness and that flow. And so today, what I really want to work on is one of the key aspects of flow, in my opinion, and that's clean landings. Now, of course, everything I'm talking about in this video is just purely my preference and my opinion, but I really do think that a clean setup, execution, and land of a trick just automatically makes it look smoother and more flowy. Tricks visually look better, in my opinion, when they're coming from like a stable base, they're being executed with finesse, and they're being landed with no tic-tacs and no toes on the ground, stuff like that. But believe me, I get it. That is not easy and it takes years of practice, which is why for the last 4 years now, since I started freestyling, I haven't really worried about this. You know, the cleanest lands have not been at the top of my worry tier when it comes to skateboarding. Everything else has, including just get your feet back on the board. Like, that was probably my number one guiding light for the last few years. Like, just get your feet back on the board, just land it. But now that I'm landing my tricks and I really want to push myself a little bit farther, now that I've been competing a few times in contests, like, it's at the top of my list right now. I want to land my tricks bolts. I want to land them with stable feet. I don't want jitters. I want to set up the trick from a center of stability and smoothness. And I think that a clean execution, start to finish, is the very best first step for me personally. I want to work on my tricks today, and I want to work on them until I land them like kind of perfectly, at least in my opinion. Like, we all have different standards, we all have different likes, and we all have different styles and interpretations of these tricks, even different interpretations of what smoothness really is, what this flow actually looks like. But this is mine. I want a clean execution, start to finish, and I want to feel really stable and solid throughout the entirety of my trick. And that's what I'm working on today. So if you wanted to kind of wrap this concept up into a pretty phrase, it would be something like practice to perfection. But in reality, it's a lot more like practicing to satisfaction, in my opinion, because what is perfection anyways? So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I've got this combo. I do not like my like run up to it. The setup is really uncomfortable. I know I'm skating on pretty gross ground. It definitely makes it way harder to freestyle smoothly when I'm on ground this as rough as this is. But I'm not going to use that as an excuse. I'm still going to push myself to get that set up as smooth as possible and then get into the truck stand and whatever I do out of it smoothly. That's the goal, right? Practice to perfection, and if perfection doesn't exist, practice to satisfaction. That's the goal. So right now is about when I start to play a little bit of a mean game with myself, which is do it again but better. And I think the most important thing here is not to like beat myself up over how I'm doing it right now, but just to push myself a little bit farther, to just strive for a little bit of a cleaner takeoff, a cleaner land, a cleaner transition. Is to really see just how far I can push myself, and really about putting in the reps to get those clean lands. Like if I want clean lands, I need to put more reps in. I need more practice. I just have to keep going. But on the other side of that, it's just as important to know when to give up. So I think the handstand was a really good example because I was just about to give up when I got the land that I wanted. However, if I had missed it again, within the next couple tries, I really should have given up here because my wrist is not crazy strong and I haven't been doing a ton of handstands recently. So it's good to know when to stop pushing my body so I don't push myself into an injury and instead try to stay within that range of I'm putting in extra reps because I want to get better at landing my tricks. I want to get them smoother and cleaner, but not pushing myself so far that I take out all of the fun of my session or I push myself into an injury. And that's a little bit of a delicate line to balance on, but it's where I've been really focusing lately. A way to make this a little more fun, in my opinion, as well, is to have a good mix of single tricks to work on and combinations to work on, because getting those really smooth and landing them cleanly, executing them cleanly, is a little bit different for single tricks versus combinations, where you have to be smooth throughout the entire combination of multiple tricks and not just one. So that's one thing I also do to mix it up a little bit and keep it more fun throughout the session. So working on single tricks, but then also working on combos. So for some things, what I really want to do is kind of slow down and walk through the steps over and over again. It's about just putting in the repetition to get better, to discover more nuances, start to see what's working, what I do when I get a clean land. But then for other things, like the ollie kickflip that I'm working on right now, it's a lot more about really diving deep into the foundations, into the mechanics of that trick. So I can get a rolly, floppy kickflip on the ground a lot. I think last week I did 6 in a row. I was working on them, trying to get as many as I could. It didn't take way too long to get 6 in a row. Floppy, rolly, all over the ground. But what this session is all about is getting closer to quote unquote perfection, right? Trying to get better at what I'm already doing. So it's a lot more about focusing on the timing. Well, making sure I get a good pop, that the tail is hitting solid off the ground. Timing, waiting just a little bit longer so the board can get higher and more vertical in the air before I flick. Really trying to get my back foot to come up nice and high so that the board has room to come up and level out. Really trying to get a good flick, trying to get it not to turn, trying to get higher, nicer ones. And so I feel like this is actually a good example of that, because I really understand a lot of the mechanics of the ollie kickflip. So being able to break this trick down in particular and really focus on those individual parts is, I think, how I can already see they're actually higher right now than they were when I started doing them. So it is working. It's what I'm doing with this trick in particular. It's just kind of like at that level where focusing on the mechanics works really well. my favorite things about freestyle is just how much room there is to play with in terms of style and flow and just play, right? Like, I just love the play aspect of freestyle and like how I interpret it, how I'm interpreting it currently. I love that aspect of play, and I love trying to add more levels of technicality to that play. Like, does that make sense? But, I'm just kind of chatting at this point. But it's really fun. I highly recommend doing this. I like the first few years of freestyle skateboarding, I really don't think you have to worry about it. But as you start getting tricks that you're landing more often, that's when I think it's kind of time to think about drilling it in a way so that it's getting smoother and so you're landing more stably, that you're setting up from a position of comfort and not a position of like teeter-tottering and almost falling over before you execute a trick. That's my current goal set. At least one. There's actually 4 aspects that I want to talk about in terms of flow and becoming a smoother freestyle. But today, this is what I chose to focus on. I wanted just to think about the very first aspect of smoothness, in my opinion, which is stability and clean execution. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you're having a good day.